Hello, you're on the road less traveled with Gary L. and Gigi's Boo. But first, this just in. The NFL just announced that because of lost revenue due to kneeling, an NFL team had to be cut. Tampa Bay and the Green Bay Packers will be combining, forming the Tampax. They'll be good for only one period and will have no second string. All righty.
Ooh, that's bad.
Hello, Gigi's Boo.
Hello, Gary.
What are you up to out there?
Nothing much. What you up to?
I don't know, just sitting here diddle-daddling around, looking at this wonderful chat room over here at reallibertymedia.com. And if you're not at reallibertymedia.com, well, I don't know where you are. You must be in another dimension. Could be a Mandela effect. I don't know. Everybody else, the only people who exist, at least from on Sundays, from 7 till 8 Eastern Time, are these wonderful folks in the RLM chat room. Yeah, Real Liberty Media and the RLM Radio, and we got all kinds of wonderful folks. Yeah, so yeah, like Cowboy Tech at top of the list. Ooh. Grimnir, Moose Girl, Kate, Esmo, Bitcoin Bob, Chelsea, Chloe, Dakota, Ivy Don C, Java Doctor, JJ's here, Juana Taco, Paul Bunyan, P. Bunyan, Rain, Trust No One, Beetle, Hares Behind the Woodshed, Colfax, Dima, Frumpy, Gigi's Boo, Yehovah, Kozu, Mui. That reminds me about Atticus, what we discovered. Poxified, Pawn Sauce, Sock Puppet, Slim Jim, Flim, and the Phantom. Everybody here. Everybody dancing to the beat. Dancing to the beat. What do you think? No, second string. That's right. Behind the Woodshed. And if you missed it, 3 to 5, Hal was here. Hell, I was actually late and I didn't get here. I'm going to have to listen to it on archive, which all of you can do as well if you weren't here for the live broadcast from 3 to 5 at RLM Radio. So, Gigi's Boo, what are you doing?
Well, we've had a shock and awe of 2 weekends, and today's been a very busy day. Last weekend, we didn't have any cable. We don't know why. It was kind of a short outage around here. Wasn't a massive outage, it was just kind of a isolated area. And the weekend before that is when we had the bad storms come through here. And it was one siren going off right after another. We turned the scanner on and there were limbs falling, trees being uprooted. Oh, the joys of living in the South. But I took my grandmother's staff. She walked everywhere. The people that know us know that my grandmother was Cherokee, and she was a midwife, and she was also a healer. And when she went anywhere, she took her staff with her. And a lot of people accused it of being black magic or anything else. You can call it what you want to. I don't care. But it really works. She would get that staff down, the storm was coming, she'd take that thing and point it direction it was coming, and she would just say a prayer to Creator and ask it to turn it, send it another way. Now, this is no story what I'm getting ready to tell you. Those limbs, we saw neighbors' trees split and limbs come down, and my sister was screaming, wanted me off the porch, but I was on the porch, and I found which direction they were coming from, and I just took that staff and I held it up toward the southwest. I'm sorry, toward the southwest, and I pointed it, and man, they split. It stopped around here, and it just split, and they went to the lower part of the country and to the upper part of the country, and they kept saying the I-85 corridor was going to be really, really bad. Well, as I did that, I said a prayer and I sang that hymn that she always sang, Pass Me Not, O Gentle Savior. And it rocked and rolled here for at least 3 hours. And we were listening to the scanner as they were saying, there's trees down, there's an entrapment, so many roads over, there's down in the lower part of the county, there's tree uprooted fell on a house. People are out, no apparent injuries. different things, and not one limb came off of any of our trees. And if anybody knows anything about pecan trees, they're easily to break, crack. One, lightning hit it out here one time. We saved it. Not one twig was in our yard. And finally, when it calmed down, I called Gary and I said, we're okay, because he was trying to call and see how we were. And we couldn't get to the phone. We were outside, but it was really, really something. I was glad when we were through with that. That was something that weekend. Really was.
Yeah.
But that staff, yeah, it's got a deer antler on it.
That's yours. Mine has an eagle head.
Yeah, and very, very, very powerful.
Yeah, and it works. All you folks don't believe it. There are a couple of people out there who are aware of that, besides us. And we'll just leave it at that. So anyway, that's pretty good. Pretty good roundup there, Gigi's Boo. But we learned something about Akis, finally.
You're going to have to.
After all this.
Our Cocker Spaniel, I swear he's human in dog form. And my daddy says that he's the mayor, and also he'll call him something else. And I said, no, he's not. He's a prince. He's a sheik or something. So I'm going to let Gary take it over on what we found out about Cocker Spaniels.
Yeah, American Cocker Spaniels. Actually, I did a little research to find out where did these Cocker Spaniels originate? Pretty interesting stuff. They're actually a fairly recent breed, and they're related to all kinds of different dogs. Mostly hunting dogs. But what really tipped the scales, it turns out that the name, now this is where it is. We already said it, Brenda said all along, Brenda said it all along, and now here it is, the Chien de l'Espagnol, the dog of Spain. That is the name of the Cocker Spaniel. So he is a Cocker Spanish guy, isn't he, Gigi's Boo?
He is. That's what I call him, and I tell him all the time that he's Mr. Lover Lover. His theme song is Shaggy's Mr. Boombastic. I don't mean necessarily girl dogs he likes. He loves everybody, and he has a following. He loves cops. He's fascinated with police officers and blue lights, and they've all learned him now, and they'll come down the road, and if they're coming by and he's outside, they'll give him a little whoop whoop, and he'll just howl and run the fence and stand up. And when he was a little puppy, he loved Mr. and Miss Mize. They lived down the street from us, and him being a hunting dog and a spaniel, he loves water. And he would run, we called it breaking loose. He would run down the street, and he took just a leap, and he would jump into their pond, their little pond they had in their yard, and water would go everywhere. And I would run around and around trying to catch him to make sure he didn't knock their fish out. So he made great friends with Mr. and Ms. Mize. And so now they come by and they bring Winnie. And he gets Winnie's from them. And he loves all the kids that come up and down the street. But he loves everybody. He's a very sociable fella. Very lovable dog. He's not eccentric. He's stubborn. Isn't that what you put him as, Gary? A little stubborn?
He's spoiled. He's stubborn.
Yeah. But if you call and he don't want to come, he don't come. And we had some people that were at one time friends of ours that came by and left, and the gates and everything were locked.
Yeah, this is funny. You should tell the whole background of that. This is funny.
Okay. We just had to. We are talking about him getting under the house, right?
Right.
Okay. And he didn't like them. for some reason. He liked them as long as they were giving him one of those weenies or whatever. And so he heard this fella in the house here, and he came and knocked the back door open with his front feet, and he hit the fella and knocked him into the refrigerator. Well, we got so tickled because he was he heard the paper rattle. Well, let me just say they left here and they didn't leave with good intentions when they had to leave. And so we had him outside and came in, and I noticed that he was really dusty, and I kept saying, "What is wrong with you? Where have you been?" And he was real restless. He'd go to the door and look out. Whether you will believe this or not, our holy man can talk to him. He can tell you everything that he's saying, and he has a special dialect. It's an ancient dialect that they talk, but it goes back to what we believe in. We all spoke the same language at one time. But anyway, he told him that he was outside, and they came by, and they tried to get him to come to the fence. And we fully believe that they were going to steal him. Gary and I weren't here. Well, bless Pat, he got up under our building because they were taking a stick and kind of poking at him, trying to make him do. And he told Lone Wolf, he said, "I got up under the building. They couldn't reach me." Well, not long ago, that same couple came in, and he walked the fence. He looked at him and walked the fence. They tried to pet him a little bit, and he wouldn't have anything to do with them. So when they went out, they had to walk the perimeter of the fence to get to their car. And so the man stooped down and patted him on the head, and he stood there and let him pat him on the head. And when he stood up before he moved, he hiked his leg, and he peed all over that man, down his shoes, He said, "Did you see him? He peed all over me." I said, "I'm so sorry." Well, I came in, and I was hysterical. Yeah. I was trying to get a hold of Gary to tell Gary. But anyway, he's a hot mess.
Okay.
He's a good dog. I'm sorry I took up a lot of time.
That's
sorry.
Okay. That's all right. Yeah. Anyway, we talked about Popcorn Sutton sometime back. You remember that, Gigi's Boo?
Oh, yeah. Popcorn's one of my heroes.
Yeah, and what all they did to him. Well, you see, it's not over. In some of the leading stories, back to victimless crimes, in Jonesville, Virginia, a 4-month, I can't talk tonight for some reason, a 4-month investigation by Virginia and Tennessee's ABC special agents led to a massive seizure in Lee County. 67 gallons of moonshine, guns, and a car. Out of this investigation, multiple felony and misdemeanor indictments are expected to be filed against a 73-year-old man caught selling moonshine in both states. Okay, now let's, beyond the fact that there's apparently no victim here, they don't list any, what's wrong with this whole business, Gigi's Boo?
Oh, they're just looking for somebody to pick on. Leave the moonshiners alone. Moonshiners are the last people in the world. They're making their family a little money. What you ought to be going after is your drug cartel that's coming in. They're just wrecking one up for them. That's all they're doing with this. They're just adding this to their bows so they'll kind of look good. You know what the latest thing is now that they've cracked down all the moonshiners? They're going, the moonshiners, no, let me rephrase that. I don't know that it's the moonshiners, but people are going into the national forest and they are planting pot plants.
Yeah. That's been going on for a while.
And that's what they're harvesting now. They can move it a lot easier than they can the heavy liquor. And I think they're to leave moonshiners alone myself.
Well, the whole thing of it is, I guess what occurred to me is this guy's 73, and I'm sure he just didn't begin. I don't think this was a retirement occupation of his. It's probably something he's been doing for a long time. Probably something that existed within the family. And because it doesn't appear, at least according to the reports, that anyone ever suffered any unexpected ill results from his product. And beyond that, here we have then a victimless crime. Of course, the state would claim that they are the victim. Yeah, and that's a whole nother ridiculous argument. That a hypothetical person can hardly be a victim, right?
What really upset me, so if you'll let me butt in here about popcorn, Popcorn Sutton didn't mess with anybody. I met him one time. He was a little old bitty scrawny man. You wouldn't have thought he'd weighed 120 pounds soaking wet with a brick in each hand. And he made a living, and he was a master moonshiner. And when they called him and they told him that he had to go to jail, Popcorn Sutton is a hero in my book because he took his own life before he'd go to the white man's jail for making a little liquor. And I hate the feds for what they did to him.
Yeah, and there's really some history behind bootlegging that typically gets overlooked, and it was actually the results of economic need, wasn't it, Gigi?
Yeah, you take the
there was so much corn.
I see it.
The corn prices were so depressed that it's just selling corn outright, you couldn't make a living. Go ahead and finish that thought, Gigi.
Yeah, you see, the corn didn't bring as much money. And what they did, they found that they could bring the liquor out and make twice as much money to buy stuff for their family. We're not talking about everyday people. Y'all don't know what poverty is. Third world countries have better housing than the Appalachian Mountains. I was so livid when they were trying to cut out the mining, because Gary and I both have Appalachian roots, and the coal miners are proud people. They didn't want a handout. Moonshiners don't want a handout. They want the government to get the hell out of the way and let them work, make money, and take care of their families. You know, and I just don't see where it's all that bad making a little shine if it's made right. Now you got people that don't make it right, but 90% of the Appalachian moonshine you see, honey, that stuff right.
Well, guess what happens if you don't make it right? You go out of business, right?
Yeah, you go out of business real quick, and also it can be linked to deaths. You know, you need that copper stuff. You don't need nothing else.
Not saying that doesn't happen, but that's not the reason. And Java hit the nail on the head about talking about the taxes. The only loss that the state incurs is the loss of revenue from the untaxed liquor, and the feds, for that matter. So there you go. It's all about money as usual.
Go ahead, Gary.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to tell a story.
Go ahead.
I got two stories about moonshining for you. My granddaddy brought some gallon cans of molasses out of the mountains up there that his uncle had made, and he was going to bring them down here and sell them to some grocery stores. And they got down the road, and state trooper pulled them over, and Granddaddy had them all lined up in the back of a old truck. He said, "What you got back there?" And he said, "Molasses." Trooper reached over in there and got one and opened it up, and he saw that it was molasses. And Granddaddy just stood there a minute, and the trooper reached to get another one. And Granddaddy said, "You open up another one, you're going to bite." He said, "You already see I'm not hauling liquor. Now, if you open up another gallon, you're going to bite." And the trooper just put it down and went on. Then I had a cousin who my mama loved. He was a good bit older than her, but to her, he was her hero. And he hauled a little liquor. And all them boys that haul that liquor are good mechanics. They knew how to balance a car. They had all kind of ways to outrun the cops, the whole 9 yards. And he, undoubtedly, the cops were after him, not so much that he had shine, but they knew that he had been hauling shine before. And my aunt and my grandmother was standing out on the side of the road, and he come by them on old mountain dirt road, flying. That car sideways skid, went by so fast it blew my grandmother's dress up. And she said, "You just wait till I get my hands on Jerlee." Said, "I'm just going to beat his tail." said, he's running from the police. I know what he's doing. She looked around and she said, Ruby May, is he hauling any liquor in that car right now? And she said, I don't think so. But anyway, he didn't have it, and he outrun him. He run the car up into the woods, came back, sitting on the porch. Cops was looking for him everywhere. So they had ways. They had fast cars. They made good money hauling. Leave them alone. Let them make it. You would not believe what a gallon of moonshine goes for. Anybody got any ideas? Okay, I can tell you. Right now, good shine coming out of western North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, or Virginia is bringing $200 a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done.
Yeah, that's about right. About $50 a quart. But anyway, I don't see the government or the networks or the power people and the corporatists complaining about NASCAR. But if it weren't for bootlegging, NASCAR wouldn't exist.
You're right. Junior Johnson and all those boys that started NASCAR run liquor.
Yep, that was the origin of NASCAR. But you don't hear anybody complain about NASCAR, do you? Other than the fact it's boring as hell. At least to me.
I know, and let me tell you about NASCAR. They run something on one of these news things that a lot of people didn't want to watch NASCAR because they said they was rednecks. It was a redneck sport. Well, let me tell you something about those rednecks. They stand for the national anthem.
Yeah, and the moneyed elite don't seem to mind that it has redneck origins, do they?
No.
They found a way to hit the ka-ching button, and so they've taken over NASCAR for what it's worth. Anyway, moving right along, how many of you guys, and probably the more chronologically challenged like me will probably remember these folks, but how about Carvin audio, Carvin amps, Carvin electronics? How many people remember that? Well, it turns out, unfortunately, here we go again, Carvin Audio closes its factory and will liquidate all of its assets. Carvin Audio announced that after 70 years in operation, it's closing the San Diego factory and liquidating the entirety of its stock. And don't worry, I've already checked. Most of the liquidation stuff is gone. I hate to tell you. So they made some great stuff. A more American product. They made great stuff. It says all the items on their website have been marked down by 25%, and all sales are final. All that stuff is gone. So, it's just the way of the dodo. But here we go. We continue to wind down. We're winding down. And nobody wants to talk a lot about that. They just want to talk about all these other things. They want to talk about all these distractions, all these taking a knee and statues and Russians and what's the latest thing going on now? Some kind of mess. Oh yeah, we got the whole thing going on with Comey popping back up and everybody, pulling out their hair trying to avoid discussing the collapse of the economy. And it's like we pointed out, it's all there. It's all written about. And as a matter of fact, I have an article somewhere, or maybe I decided not to include it. Let's see. I guess I pulled that one out. But anyway, things are coming apart at the seams. It's a very gradual letdown at the moment. At least that's the appearance that's being given. And, of course, all the government reports, everything's coming up roses. Yeah, okay. I got all those bridges to sell, Boo Boo Bear. I ought to be able to get rid of those about now. What do you think?
I'm sure you could sell that Brooklyn Bridge real easy.
But on an upside, if there is such a thing, it seems that Radio Shack took a slightly different turn and started offering some of their stores, if they're stores, to people who might want to take them over. Okay, so it looks like, at least in a few cases, some of the original store managers are actually taking over the stores and to operate them as private operation. At least here in Jefferson City, Tennessee, Jeff Peterson, I guess, and Trevor Reed took over the Radio Shack. He was the manager of the original store for 6 years before Radio Shack went bankrupt and closed all of its stores nationwide. He said he saw a lot of people lose their jobs. As the marketing manager, I was the one who had to let a lot of those people go. He was real sad. His store was one of the last to close as they continued to do well under his high level of customer service, which often included going to customers' homes to make sure they were satisfied with their purchase and helping customers set up or troubleshoot new devices. Whoa! Now, what did you just hear there, Gigi's Boo? What?
Going into people's homes. That's what hit me, that they were going to make visits into people's homes.
Yeah, but nobody can make money doing that anymore. Gigi's Boo.
Yeah, you can. We've already given them a success story.
That's right.
Weezer, he's got a success story.
That's right. See, but the people on Wall Street will tell you, the numbers junkies will tell you that you can't do that. You have to keep rolling people through the revolving door. And I think what we have now discovered is that while at one point when people had disposable income, then perhaps that was an interesting way to harvest as many people as possible. But now things are changing, and not only in the area of electronics, but also in the area of medicine. Because in a Reason.com article, it talks about doctors who got fed up with insurance. Now they treat their patients like valued customers. Oh, talk about a theme. The direct primary care movement is attracting physicians who are sick of red tape and is transforming their doctor-patient relationships. And without going through all the details here, I think Gigi's Boo can tell you exactly what's going on with this.
You were talking about the payment plan. Doctors are seeing that they had rather take a smaller office visit payment than have to deal with insurance companies who regulate things. The insurance companies regulate what kind of medicine you can give your patient, what they will pay for, and what they won't. That is why you're seeing all these urgent care facilities to come up. They have them, and it's not a free clinic, but to working people, it almost is free, because I think an office visit's only $60. To see my doctor, I have to pay $300 for an office visit, and he's just a regular general practitioner. I would hate to see what I had to pay a specialist. So the revenue that he takes in is clear. He doesn't have to wait. He's not bound by, I can't give you Norman for your heart or your blood pressure because your insurance won't pay for it. You know, it's going to have to come out of your pocket, but this is the best medicine that I know. Let me give you an example on some good medicine. Being a psychiatric nurse, the safest medicine that they ever gave for bipolar, manic depression, was plain lithium. It comes out of Mother Earth. But you see, they didn't want that to be mined and used because the pharmaceutical companies began to make all these psychotropic chemicals, and they became chemical lobotomies. And lithium is rarely ever used anymore for bipolar. Again, your pharmaceutical companies and your insurance companies got together and they decided, we're going to do this. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, Graham, it's $300 for me to see the doctor. Yeah.
Well, not under this approach anyway. This new approach that this one doctor they're writing about is called direct primary care, but it's essentially a throwback to an era before insurance companies were responsible for covering routine services like ear infections or strep cultures. Dr. Ryan Neuhofel, there we go, who's been running his own direct primary care practice in Lawrence, Kansas since 2011, has a page on his website that lists the cost of each procedure, which the patient, not the insurance company, actually pays. Need an x-ray? That's $25 to $40, along with a monthly subscription fee that runs from $35 for minors to $130 for a family of 4. So think about that. Can you get an insurance plan for a family of 4 for $130? Answer is probably a big no to that. But so this direct primary care practice charges a monthly subscription fees and allows them to offer other services like answering the phone calls, text messages, or even having appointments over Skype. Services that our insurance-dominated system will not allow. Okay, but they say removing interference of third parties changes the dynamic between patients and doctors. The doctor says we're able to be creative in meeting their needs. We are able to give them transparency in pricing and redesign the entire healthcare experience around what the patient needs. But let's just get, we've talked about this when I was a kid. This is the way it worked. This is how it worked. You had your family physician who might be in an office with another doctor. In our case, it was Dr. Mangus and Dr. Woolbine. Both were World War II doctors, and they had their own practice, and they come to your house, and the whole shooting match. If you were too sick to come to them, they come to you, and I don't care what time of day it was, or night.
I do think that home visits are coming back, and I do know that they do have a veterinarian in this area who has a mobile office. And say your dog is really sick or gets run over, and only option you have is the emergency veterinarian hospital, which is really high. We had to take Atticus one night, and honest to God, I think it was right $400 we had to pay for him one night in the emergency room. But if a rolling mobile unit comes to you to treat your dog, it might be cheaper because the vet's coming and offering a service and the whole 9 yards. And I know this one even has a small operating room and has x-ray equipment. So that's the thing. Watch your doctors. This is going to happen here. We're going to have doctors who make home visits again. People are tired of big bucks. People are tired of the government telling them that they've got to have health insurance. What happened when people didn't have health insurance years ago and had to have surgery? I'm going to tell you what happened. They did the surgery on them, and people paid every week when they got their paycheck. They paid a little bit on their hospital bill. You didn't have big corporations pushing and this, that, and the other. You had county-run hospitals. That's where I say, let the state make the choice about your insurance. Keep your money within your own state and see your doctors in your state. Oh, don't get me on that. I'm done, Gary. Go ahead.
Okay, as we pointed out here, and we actually talked about last week. We talked about the lodges that existed back in the day. That now, it kind of made sense to me after reading that study. Why all these what they call secret societies were so ostracized is because a lot of them had a root in these wellness groups they called lodges, where people joined and paid a little subscription, and that way they got their medical care. So that was actually the forerunner, I guess, of the mutual form of insurance, the mutual companies. So anyway, yeah. So, but like you were pointing out, that a lot of doctors are jumping out of the system too, because they don't want to play with all this crazy stuff anymore. So I don't know if that one of the unforeseen effects of all this craziness, possibly so. And along the same lines or similar lines. Go ahead.
We were talking about doctors. Our doctor retired. I'm not going to call his name on the air, but when he retired, he had been practicing medicine 50 years. And he didn't hold back anything. He would just cuss and go on. He was Army doctor. And it didn't matter what was wrong with you. He could take care of you. He had to quit taking out tonsils and quit delivering babies because people just kept wanting to sue. The suing thing got crazy. But I know we took my little nieces in over there, and one of them was sick and the other one was crying. And he said, "What the hell's wrong with her?" And we said, "She's crying because you coming in here." He said, "Oh, shut the hell up and sit down. I didn't come in here to see you anyway." And I mean, none of us got mad at him. That was just our doctor. That's the way he talked. But you can bet your sweet Buppy you were taken care of. He could set a bone. He could do he'd swab your throat. He could do anything. He did it all. And now when you go, and if you got a sore throat, you can say, "I got a sore throat." Well, we're not going to give you any antibiotics. We think it's just a little viral thing. Shh, come home and give it to Mama. Mama, get out some old mercurochrome, she'll punch your throat. But we're going to see a return of yesteryear, is the only way I can put it. You're going to see the old become new. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. And I think, you're talking about the MD, the general practitioner. And as you describe, as I recall, these MDs shared one nurse/receptionist, but they also had their microscopes. They did limited amount of lab work right there in the office. They could diagnose your strep throat or all without having to send you to 15 other places or send you down to have all your blood work done. They did most of that right there in the office. So, but anyway, as along the lines also of further decline in our circumstances, and a study is published on, and I tried to look up what PLOS stands for, and I really couldn't get an answer, but it's an open access peer-reviewed site that people post studies. And this one has a whole list of people tangled up with it. It says more than 75%, let me rephrase that, more than 75% decline over 27 years in total flying insect biomass in protected areas. Just let that sink in, how that's phrased. The abstract says the global decline in insects have sparked wide interest among scientists, politicians, and the general public. Loss of insect diversity and abundance is expected to provoke cascading effect on food webs and to jeopardize ecosystem services. Our understanding of the extent and underlying causes of this decline is based on the abundance of single species or taxonomic groups only, rather than changes in insect biomass, which is more relevant for ecological functioning. Here, we used a standardized protocol to measure total insect biomass using different types of traps deployed over 27 years in 63 nature protection areas in Germany to infer on the status and trend of the local population. Our analysis estimates a seasonal decline of 76% and a midsummer decline of 82% in flying insect biomass over the 27 years of study. And I'll stop right there. And I have to tell you, it's something that I've noticed only this year. I've noticed a lack of flies. Gigi's Boo, have you had any experiences like that?
They've not been as bad this year as they usually are. Did you hear me, Gary?
Yeah, and I don't see the flies. I don't see butterflies as much. I mean, there's a butterfly tree, as we call it, a butterfly bush. It just happens to have flowers that butterflies are attracted to. Don't see them that much. Grasshoppers. I don't see grasshoppers like I used to. Lightning bugs, fireflies, some people call them. I don't see them as much. There's something to this. And I think we all know that we're talking about environmental toxins that in many cases are intentionally put into the atmosphere. So what else is going on here? I don't know, but this was a very disturbing study. So if you want to dig deeper into it, it's in the website. All the links will be in the website, and they'll also be on the Blogcaster. Any thoughts about that, Gigi's book?
No. I just hate that the bees and the butterflies are so scarce now.
Yeah, I didn't even mention the bees, but that's been a kind of a scary thing going on all across the world, So I don't know. Let's jump around here a little bit. I will say, okay, let's just do this. Let's kind of lighten up a little bit, Gigi. This is something that came up in the Appalachian magazine. For those of you who don't know that magazine, if you're interested in Appalachians, it's pretty good publications, online publication. And one of the stories here asks the question, why are there huge rock stacks located throughout the Appalachian Mountains? What I'm talking about here is actually photographed, but you'll see usually flat rocks all stacked up almost like you might stack a wood pile. And they just show up in the strangest places, like in the middle of the mountains. You'll see these rocks stacked up. And this article goes through and explores what the possible sources of those might be. And it said occasionally these rock piles are perfectly squared, whereas at other times they seem as though they were merely a mound of stones gathered from across a hillside and collected into one location. You have any thoughts on that, Gigi's Boo?
I don't think that they were randomly stacked. I think that they were there for a reason. Marker for land, marker for air. Who knows? I don't know, but they just didn't randomly, nobody just gathered them up and randomly put them anywhere.
Yeah, I've run across those in the mountains before, just recently actually, and these were actually set up in piles in different places, a little bit like a mound, if you will. And one of the thoughts is that they may actually be ancient burial grounds. That the rocks were used to cover the graves. Some other thoughts are that perhaps back in the day, people tried to farm the area nearby, and as they cleared the land, they'd move the rocks and stack them up. And of course, you can also build fences that way. And that's the pretty obvious one. But some of the places it shows up it doesn't appear to be conducive to farming. So it's just a fascinating little what is it kind of thing, a little mystery. People seem to like mysteries. I do. So there's one. If you're anywhere around the Appalachians, you might trip over one of these rock piles somewhere where you don't expect it and wonder where it came from. That's a little bit like the trees that you'll find in the mountains that are bent, in two right angles, actually. They're bent over at a right angle, and then they're bent again at another right angle. So there's like I guess you say an L shape, sort of, on the tree. You know where that comes from, Gigi's book?
The Indians did that.
Yeah, why'd they do that?
They did that as an easy route to go and to make sure that people found water.
That's
They
right.
always did a route that was the easiest to travel, but also a place that they could get water and refresh.
Yep, that's right. And now a lot of those trees are mature trees. And so you'll see these big old trees that have a bend in them. So what you can actually do is kind of plot yourself through the woods following these trees, and you'll end up someplace acceptable. Like end up at water. You could end up at a nice flat place where you might want to pitch tent or something like that. So the moral of the story is that the Indians created the little highway markers a long time ago, and when the trees were only saplings, when they were able to bend them without hurting them too much.
And the Plains Indians did smoke signals, and the Cherokees tree knocked.
Right. Yeah. So you can follow, if you're ever in the woods and you may find yourself lost, if you can find one of these trees, and usually from what I can tell, and especially in the fall and when the leaves are off the trees, if you find one of these trees, if you're very careful and very observant, you can look around in a 360 degree and you can see the next one or the next two if you happen to end up in the middle. And you can follow those then, and you might find your way out of where you're lost. It's just one.
I'll tell you a quick tip that my granddaddy taught us, to go to water if we were lost. Follow that water as it goes downstream, because it's going to run into big water. And the bigger water is going to run into the bigger water. And then you're going to run into a town. And he said, that's a sure way of being able to get out. He said, I'm not telling you it's overnight. It might take you a while to get there. But he said, follow the water.
Yep, since it runs downhill, it typically runs into a larger stream and so forth and so on. So yeah, find you some water and follow it right along. Okay, let's see. Now we'll save that. Okay, let's. Hopefully, everyone's finished his or her dinners. Here's a little silly article that talks about 10 ugly, nasty, gross ingredients that you have unknowingly been eating all along. Everything from sawdust to ground up bugs to hair. Okay, cellulose. Now, I think a lot of people have seen that in the news, how cellulose has been included in Parmesan cheese to not only beef up the weight, but also to add as an I guess you'd say clotting agent to keep it from sticking together. So it sounds innocent enough, right? Turns out cellulose is actually sawdust. Yes, real wood sawdust. It is indigestible to humans and provides 0 calories. Still, manufacturers like to add it to cheese, especially Parmesan, as well as bread and low-fat ice cream. It stops the cheese from clumping and keeps ice cream creamy without the fat and adds fiber to bread. How about some antifreeze? You like antifreeze in your diet? Well, propylene glycol. It's also found in soda, baked goods, ice cream, and alcohol, presumably to add flavor. Lanolin. Everybody knows what lanolin is, right? It's that oil, the waxy-like discharge that comes from on the sheep's wool to keep water from sticking. Sounds yummy, doesn't it? But for the most part, it's in skincare products such as lip balm and hand cream, as well as shoe polish and softening products for baseball mitts and horse saddles. But it's also found in chewing gum in order to keep it chewy. So you may very well have chewed on lanolin before, or chewed on a sheep. Here's a good one. Castoreum. You ever heard of that, Gigi's Boo? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Every time you eat raspberry or strawberry ice cream, think about how you might be eating something from a beaver's butt. Castoreum is an ingredient that comes from a beaver's anal glands. It has been used to add flavor to certain ice creams. Some flavor-creating alternatives have since been employed, but you never know. Silicon dioxide, otherwise known as sand, naturally found on beaches, of course. But why would you want to put it in food? Well, it absorbs moisture and helps keep powdered food products like soap, salt, and coffee creamer from clumping. Titanium dioxide, used in toothpaste, paint, and more famously in sunscreen in order to give these products their whitish tint. However, it's also found in coffee creamer and salad dressing, also to make them appear whiter. The chemical is currently under review in France as a banned ingredient after research on rats showed the ingredient does appear to enter the bloodstream via the stomach, and it alters intestinal and immune system responses, and that rats with long-term oral exposure were 40% more likely to develop precancerous colorectal lesions. Wonderful, right, Gigi's Boo?
Very much so.
And how about rennet? Rennet is used in almost every cheese to separate the milk into solid curds. It also happens to be from the inside of a calf's stomach. There are some vegetarian alternatives, but they aren't used very often. And good old shellac. Ever wonder what gives wood that shiny seal? If you guess shellac, you'd be right. Shellac is excreted by a female lac bug, which lives on trees in Thailand and India. That same shine we've come to know and love is also used on jelly beans in order to give them that glossy finish. So if you like jelly beans, you're eating insect secretions. Carmine, not just an old school Italian name, it's also a pigment used since the time of the Aztecs. I looked this up and I don't know how to say it. Cochineal bugs are dried in the sun and ground up to create this red dye, which is used in everything from soft drinks to frozen meat to imitation crab meat and candy. And finally, L-cysteine. L-cysteine comes from human hair. Not really sure if it counts as non-vegetarian, but L-cysteine is in soy products and bread, as well as meat and eggs, and is used to extend these products' shelf life. In the European Union, the usage of hair to obtain L-cysteine was banned. So it now comes from poultry feathers, which may or may not be less disgusting. Thoughts, Gigi's Boo?
I just got to where I read labels on anything.
Yeah, but then you also have to know what you're looking at. And hopefully this article helps in some regard. Wow, isn't that amazing, Gigi's Boo?
Yes, it is.
Ugh. And we wonder why all these insects are disappearing and why the predictions of a global, a fairly radical global population decrease. Yeah, you wonder about those things. All this stuff is just happening right in front of our eyes. It's a very interesting period to live. Okay, let's finish up with a couple of these. I saved it for the last, and I don't know how many of you guys like these tricky question type riddles that some people do. They're okay. I'll just hit on a couple of them because we have about a minute left. Okay, now this is, I'll just do this. I'll do a couple here. These are riddles that play with the notion that things aren't always as they seem. So listen carefully. In a one-story yellow house, there was a yellow person, a yellow cat, a yellow dog, a yellow chair, a yellow table, yellow telephone, yellow bathtub. Everything was yellow. But what color were the stairs? Let you think about that for a minute. And let's just skip down. Let's do number 2, and that'll be probably the last one before we're out of here, Gigi's Boo. A man was found dead on Sunday morning. The only other people home were the man's wife and his staff. The wife claims she was reading a book at the time. The maid said she was getting the mail. The chef said he was cooking breakfast. The butler said he was cleaning the bathroom. And the gardener said he was planting tomatoes. Who was the murderer? Okay, there we are. Thanks so much for joining this week. Gigi's Boo, what you got?
Well, I just want to tell everybody to always take the road less traveled and love you big to my heart.
Yep, that is it for us tonight. And we were a little bit, I don't know, our timing was off or something. I don't know what was going on. It was a little bit, apologies. It was a little bit rough. I couldn't talk. I don't know. I guess it's just one of those days, and I'll try to clean some of it up in the archive. So anyway, thanks to everyone in the chat room. Thanks at reallibertymedia.com, and it's Road Less Traveled. We'll see you. Bye-bye.